again, everybody, is Hayley Atwell.
Hello. Hi, guys. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, very good. How are you
Nice to
doing?
finally meet you.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Oh, how lovely. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Some great costumes out there. Hi.
You get us on, we got a couple Peggy cars.
I love it. I'm also...
You got a vision over there.
Oh, yes. With the Union Jack as well, I see. Captain Carter. And the shields. I'm so grateful that Marvel made her so distinctive in her colour scheme, because I look out and I can spot them really quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot more out today than yesterday. This is a pretty good crowd of cosplay. Are you enjoying the convention so far?
I am. I mean, I just arrived, so far, so good. I literally on a golf buggy about 30 seconds ago, in this incredible heat, which, coming from London, obviously, takes a moment to acclimatise to. But I love it. It feels like a massive warm hug from like a family member that for the first 5 minutes you're like, this is so nice. And they're like, this is a bit too much now.
you like the heat, but not this much.
Yes, I love the heat as long as I know I can kind of go into an air-conditioned room and just kind of calm down. Otherwise I won't be able to, if I'm in heat for too long, I just pass out like most people and I just kind of go to sleep. Like a cat. Just leave me alone for a few minutes in a room and I'll just be asleep.
I'm from New York and I have people on social media that are complaining that it's 95. I'm like, come out in Texas.
Oh man, we had a heat wave in London and we're not used to it. The infrastructure's not built for kind of heat waves like that. And I live in an old house, and to keep my dogs cool, I put these wet towels in the hallway. And within about 10 minutes, I was in my swimsuit on the wet towels myself in the hall, just like staring up at the ceiling. And I remember thinking, I know I could just go and have a cold shower, but the thought of having to climb up the stairs right now is not doable. It's not going to happen. I stayed on my floor of my hallway for about 2 hours. My dogs were like, it's for me. What's going on?
Excellent. So, what's running back because we got everybody dressed as Marvel, so we should go right to the start.
Straight for what you guys came for.
How did you get the role back in Captain America long ago?
Oh my gosh, we're talking about 10 years ago. I wasn't particularly familiar with the comic books at that time, and that was sort of, I suppose, the first wave of Marvel becoming what it is now. But back then, it wasn't as known, so certainly not in my consciousness. And so I got an initial audition. And then a screen test came a few weeks later, which was, from what I can remember of it, I learned about 10 pages of dialogue, and it was actually the scene where she's speaking to Steve at the phone at the end, so it would be an emotional scene. And I had to do stunt choreography with the team. They wanted to see how quick I could learn a piece of choreography, basically how coordinated I was if I was to fall over myself and make it a farce. And then a little bit of kind of gun work, loading and unloading guns. But I think the thing that got me the part was the emotional stuff. So the phone call with Steve, having to be in a room in a studio outside of London with a film crew who you've never met before, the cameras and lights, aware of the pressure of going, if I got this job, it potentially could be a really exciting, big challenge for me. And I had only up to that point done a lot of theatre, and I'd done like adaptations of books and period dramas, so this was unknown territory. And I just remember thinking, if I could just be truthful to the emotion of what the scene is, then I'll come away feeling like I've done a good job, regardless of the outcome. And I remember this guy he was called Richard, who was the first assistant director, and on cut, before we began the audition, he's like, okay, so stand over there, on action, you say your lines, do your bit of acting, and then we'll cut, and then we'll just do it again if we want you to do it differently. All right, yeah, cool, yeah. Wasn't really making eye contact, was very busy doing lots of other things. And then on cut, there was silence in the room from the crew, and I looked and kind of went, what's going on? And Richard was like, I think we got it, yeah, it was fine, yeah, it was good. And I said, oh, I got it, yes. I made him cry. And so I suppose that was the moment where I thought, okay, that's the kind of thing they're looking for in a comic book heightened world. they're wanting to find a performance that centers something with an emotional truth to it, because they want the audiences to really engage with the character stories as well as the great big elaborate action sequences. So that's where it all began.
Okay, cool. We also solicited some questions from the audience, and Carly, little one there on the end, she had a nice question. She wanted to know, wait, Carly. She wanted to know, what's your favorite part of being Peggy Carter?
Do you know what it genuinely is? This might sound sentimental, I don't know, but generally it's meeting you guys face to face. It really, I find it really moving when I hear your guys' stories of what either Peggy Carter or this franchise or this particular group of characters has meant for you, and conventions are a great way to experience that, because we did this a long time ago and we don't see who the audience is. And when I do a play, I'm very much engaged with who's partaking in this story. So to be able to come here and then meet you guys face to face and hear your stories and hear things back to me of, the Peggy's line of I know my value, and the confidence that seems to instill in some people and stay with them. It feels a great privilege to be part of that for many people's lives. I think it's very moving.
It must just be fun, all that stuff, the Marvel, the jumping around.
That's a little bit of fun. It's fun. It is fun.
And you got to do, the movie, the TV show, and the animation. Well, and those are three very different forms of art. What are the differences in doing that? How difficult is the transition and so forth?
I would say they all require something technically very different. So the film, you're dealing with a bigger set, larger crew, and trying to keep the focus for the performance of what you're bringing to it, as well as also meeting the needs of the crew, going like, you've got a stand take, you've got to wear this, you've got to, on action, you could be able to do this particular stunt and hopefully do it well, because if you do it again, that's their time. You're aware of negotiating. Every single department on the film has their own needs and their own tasks ahead, and you as an actor coming in wanting to serve them, but also hold on to the clarity of what you're there for and what the audience is going to see and take away from what you're doing. I think the show I loved it because I had much more control. and by that meant that I was turning up every day, I was leading it, so you're the number one on the call sheet, as they say, the person whose show it is very much setting the tone and the atmosphere for the working environment. And that is an added kind of responsibility of leadership and an extra challenge on top of the performance aspect of it. But that's where I really find my comfort zone. I thrive in an environment where I feel like all aspects of my skill set can be fully used up. So I'm not waiting around. There can be, on a big film, there can be a lot of waiting around and then going from 0 to 100 really quickly. And when I was filming, I had so much time that I ended up doing this short course at the Open University online in the UK, studying the struggle for democracy in Burma, haiku poetry, and some art history. Like, that's how much time I had. I was also drinking beers and playing computer games with Stanley Tucci present, but I was like, that's going to have a shelf life. I think not too much of that, because no one's going to get their job done. So the show was also, we had less time, so you know that you have to shoot a certain amount of sides per day, so you're meeting kind of pressured kind of timings, and I really thrive under pressure. That's where I kind of feel the most engaged, and I can, again, use every aspect of what I have to bring. And then the animation. I mean, I was in my pajamas, guys. It's like in my house, trying to find a corner of the house that was okay for acoustics, but I'm quite fairly close to Heathrow Airport, so you can hear planes go over, you can hear my French bulldog snoring in the corner, scratching at the door to get in, because I'm obviously like screaming and grunting and throwing these sounds during the flight sequences, and my dogs are like, "Mom, are you okay?" I'm assuming that's how they speak with this language.
So Captain Carter was recorded in pajamas in your house with a French bulldog?
Correct.
Oh, that is so cool.
They are the secret sauce to that show, my French bulldogs. Yeah. I can also tell when I've really like nailed it, because if they're my audience. So if they're kind of like fast asleep on the couch and I do something that's kind of high energized or whatever, they don't flinch. I'm like, I clearly wasn't giving it anything. The purity of them in terms of their judgment of my performance actually keeps my feet on the ground. They're good teachers.
All right, cool. We've got another question from the audience. This one's anonymous, I guess. Which of your co-stars in the MCU do you like working with the most?
That's so unfair.
Yeah.
That's so unfair. Well,
You can just say all of them.
no, that's boring. I don't believe that because there's certain people I didn't like, but I liked who they are either. I think so. You know how you have people in your life that's the person I go to when I really want to have a giggle. This is the person who's really good at advice. This is the person who's really motivating. And so different people did different things. I mean, James Dalsey, who plays Jarvis, is one of my dearest friends. I had dinner with him 2 days ago. I mean, we really kept on that relationship going. And he, I think also because on the show, he would meet my challenge for pranks. So, I mean, I'm sure some of you, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but we had a Dove Smash war and it was along the lines of, it was James and I realizing that we are just as competitive as each other, and because of that, we'd probably be friends forever. Because we'd also be competing at who was the better friends to one another, right? This is a functioning friendship, okay? But I remember when the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cast absolutely smashed it with one of their Dove Smashes in Comic-Con in San Diego. And James and I looked at each other, and without having to talk, we both had the same thought, which is tomorrow morning 4 a.m. we're going to fly to Atlanta to go on the set and meet Chris and do a 9-second Dove Smash with him, and then we're going to get on a plane and go back home. Like that was how it was an expensive prank. And it was one that caused a lot of friends and family members from both sides to be like, are you guys okay? And it was just so fun. So I think also when you're working on a show that has long hours, that asks a lot of energy and focus from you, pranks for me are a great way to keep the energy up and the morale up. And he is my co-conspirator when it comes to pranking. But then of course, for me, Stanley Tucci is a very dear friend of mine. He met his wife while we were doing Captain America, who became one of my best friends, and I got to then read in their wedding, so it felt like that was a very special time for me to have met such a charming, elegant, intelligent man like Stanley. And we went on holiday together recently. He's obviously, as many people know, an incredible chef. So that's the reason why I'm friends with him, but it certainly helps. And then, whenever I come to a convention, I meet Chris, or I see Dominic Cooper, it's like kind of a happy school reunion in a way, and we kind of quickly descend to how the friendship dynamic was back then. It's really nice because it's like, when you meet someone and you haven't seen them for a while, but you hit off immediately where you left off, and it doesn't feel like any time has passed. And I think a lot of these jobs, you're working intense hours away from home, away from family and friends, so you very much become a family, and you rely on each other to keep you going, keep you through, because you have a shared goal, and you have a specific amount of time in which you're building rapport with each other. And you have to do that pretty quickly. I've done jobs where I've gone, hello, my name's Hayley, nice to meet you. You're apparently my husband, so let's go. Okay. And have to then do a scene where you've created in a very short period of time a kind of level of chemistry or trust where you can convince an audience that you have a long-term history with that person. So that is very much also the skill set of being an actor.
Another question from the audience was, have you ever stolen a prop? And sometimes we don't use the word stolen, but maybe acquired.
No, stolen. Like that phrase, yeah, completely. Yeah, actually, on every job I do. But the prop masters know this about me now, so if I'm kind of like I just love working with props, I find it helps. There's a lot of stagecraft and theatre, a training there has come from how you use a prop on stage, and you keep the prop that you're using as an extension of the story that you're telling, or an extension of the gesture of the character. It can be it can be a good hook into the audience knowing quickly who that person is by the way that you stir a cup of tea, or the way that you handle delicate things, or the way that you sit down in a chair can tell you a lot about whether that person has had a good day or not. So I love practical things. And particularly with my show, I mean, I did this with Christopher Robin, I know Ewan's here. I think he stole just as much from me, if not more, than I did. So like,
I've interviewed him in that show.
I took the gramophone from that film. I still have it. That he and my character and his wife danced to, so I stole that. So my Ewan moment. And then the props master on Agent Carter. I would just be like in between takes, just kind of going, what? It's quite good. Just kind of looking at over him. He's like, yeah, got it. I know. And he at the end would present me with a beautiful shadow box of beautiful props, and particularly because Agent Carter was a period piece, so you had these beautiful pieces from the designer who had gone to such incredible detail of, you'd open a drawer and there would be cards with like her name at the top of it, and pictures of meant to be her family, or a little picture of Steve that would often be hidden in certain things. And I got a vial of his blood, I got a revolver, I got a hairpiece that's kind of probably living in the basement. There's probably, I don't know, grown body.
Was that a hairpiece you wore like in the first Captain America film, or was that was your hair, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was a hairpiece. It was like a horseshoe shape with my hair coming out the top of it, so you can kind of blend it. But if on its own, it almost looked like it looked like I would have had a book patch right in the middle of my head. But things like that help to create, save time on a set, because they can start the wig in advance of me coming in, so it's less time. All the stuff where you're just trying to save as much time as possible.
If you could add a superpower for Peggy Carter, what would it be? What power would you like her to have?
Oh, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The ability to eat whatever I wanted without any consequences. Right? Never feel tired or bloated or guilty. I'd just be so happy. That'd be my it's like snacks on a conveyor belt coming through. Like Lucille Ball's sketch, remember that one? Just like, that would be great. And I feel like it's a simple superhero power to ask. I don't think it's not particularly sophisticated or complicated as
It's not going to save children in fire.
It's not going to save children in fire. But because there's no consequences to eating so much, I would still probably have the energy to save children in the fire. So it kind of works.
And you'll actually, okay, yeah, all right.
Right? Very special logic.
Some weird way. And then another question from the audience from Leslie. She'd like to know, who's the first celebrity you ever met?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, wow. Well, growing up in London, going to theatre, I met a lot. So my mum would always have this thing where she knew I liked performance. She really wanted me to go backstage and acknowledge the performer, the actor, and you get a chance to meet them. So I met a lot of people who I go and see, but I remember my namesake. So I was named after an actress called Hayley Atwell, which some of you might know from the original Parent Trap and Whistle Down the Wind, and she's this legendary English child actress, Tiger Bay, the daughter of Sir John Mills, and my mum was such a big fan of hers, and she took me to see an old coward play that she was doing with her sister outside of town, and I must have been about, I think maybe 8, I think around then, and went backstage, and I just remember kind of looking up at this goddess with this mane of incredible golden hair. She looked like a lioness, and she had this very English accent. It was kind of clipped and breathy, and she just got off stage, and I just thought that was amazing. And I was kind of there with my bangs, and which was so far across the side of my head, it was effectively a mullet. And I probably had we call it a bum bag, you guys call it a fanny pack. I probably had one of them on. I was big into that around that time. And she turned around and she kind of didn't look down at me emotionally, but she towered over me, and my mother said, "This is my daughter Hayley, I named her after you." And she was so kind and generous with her time, and so genuinely touched that someone would do that I remember thinking, she made me feel so seen in that moment, and she made eye contact with me and she asked me questions about what I was into, what I was up to at school, and I remember coming away feeling just high. It was just so, wow, I've been in the presence of someone that I admired and is the reason I am called what I'm called. And I never forgot that feeling. And it reminded me when I've met particularly young people who really responded to Peggy Carter, of going, I know what that feeling feels like, and I want to help create that for that child, because they can remember that, and I remember that, and I will for the rest of my life. So that was, I think, a very particular moment of meeting a celebrity.
Well, that was a great story. I just thought you were going to go John McEnroe, just something. That was really
no, never met him, sadly. No.
Did that help, was that maybe one of the reasons why you wanted to get into the performance arts in the first place? Is meeting a celebrity you had a connection with at such an early age?
I was a shy kid, and I was an only child. I loved watching movies, I loved watching theatre, and when I would go to the theatre in particular, the power, you guys feel it when you see a great movie, when the lights go down and you are collectively about to go on a journey, and you're all kind of strangers, but by the end of it you will have collectively experienced something, and hopefully if the film's good, you want to be changed from how you were when you walked in to your experience afterwards. And I remember feeling that and going, I don't understand how these people on this stage, who I've never met before, are making me, opening up my mind to ideas, exploring the darker side of the human condition. I felt this interesting. You're seeing these domestic scenes play out, and you're watching people's lives that see intimate moments that would only really be reserved for inside your own home. And the power of that, and how they were able to make it feel entirely personal to me, but for everyone in the audience. And I thought, there's some sort of wizardry going on here, and I want to know how to do that. But I didn't, I wasn't a show kid, I didn't do lots of kind of singing and dancing classes. I just remember that feeling, and I remember thinking, I want in. I don't know how, I don't know what that means, I don't know if I can do it. But I was like, it's a pursuit that I felt like it was a noble one, because it was based on the wholesomeness and just the shared experience of a story, which is what any civilized society is based on. We are based on the stories that we share with each other, within our family, within our social groups, and our larger communities. It's what brings us together, and it helps us understand a little bit more about our experience, and helps us also see other people's perspectives. And I just remember thinking it's the power of the story, regardless of genre, regardless of medium, that I'm always looking for. I'm always looking for the thing that makes me, again, feel like I'm connected to something outside of myself.
You were talking about the importance of stories. Do you have a favorite film or favorite story, so to speak?
Oh, I mean, so many. I watched, just because I watched it on the plane yesterday, I watched Sunset Boulevard again. Have you guys seen that recently? It's a masterpiece, and it's terrifying. And I was going, am I going to end up like Norma Desmond?
No.
I was like, I'm an actress. I was going, because also I was like, at what level of delusion in the film do you, because I'm like, oh no, I just, she's complicated. And there's a lot of enabling around her of like maintaining this delusion that she was once had this moment of glory, like the shrinking violet, very Blanche Dubois, Streetcar Desire, a very kind of that turning point in a lot of women's lives in the creative arts, whereas this sense of going, are they chasing now the time before, as a fear of accepting who they are now, and the fear of aging with dignity and grace and confidence in actually what age gives you as a person. And I found it terrifying to watch her demise, where she becomes less and less connected to reality, because she just can't bear the idea that she's not who she once was, because who she once was in her mind seems to be the only thing the only person that had value. And so I saw it and I thought, this is a really masterful film, technically, of its time. And yet I found that she wasn't this sort of the cult classic camp performance that we all love to quote. I'm ready for my close up, and I didn't get small. No, I'm big. The pictures got small. All these brilliant one-liners, but actually watching the film, I felt this time actually how deeply sad it was. And then I love the cameo from Buster Keaton. How brilliant! There's this moment in the film where they're all playing cards, and the narration is talking about, all the greatest stars from the silent movies of yesteryear now get together as like waxworks, puppets, and they play cards together. And then it cuts to Buster Keaton. And there was just this knowingness that he's like, I'll do a cameo that is totally self-aware of the fact that it's making me look like this is no longer my time. And I thought it was, for me, the film is one of the first classic Hollywood films that starts to comment on the system and starts to have self-awareness or self-consciousness about itself and starts to parody itself and become a bit meta. And yet it's told again in that very dramatic film noir way, where it's very captivating to watch, and it's a thriller. You know what's going to happen next. Yeah. I like a horror show as well, and I like kind of Breakfast Club. I like this. I don't have a particular genre, so I can talk all day about my favourites. There's one for you.
Okay, cool. Is there anything you can tell us about the upcoming Mission Impossible film, or films, I should say?
It's going to be amazing.
What is that?
It's going to be amazing.
Okay.
That's all I can say. We've been filming it for 3 years. So there's a lot of expectation, and I have about another 18 months on it because we're doing 2. And I'm sure many of you have seen Top Gun and the ambition that he had for that film and his understanding of wanting very much to release it in the cinema at a time when people were feeling brave enough to return, because he believes in the legacy of cinema and wanting to keep that alive. And that's the same work ethic and ambition he has for Mission. I've loved the physical challenge of it. I've been working with extraordinary stunt teams and martial art experts and Olympic athletes, and the level of commitment and discipline that it takes to be working at that level for that long, and not just necessarily learning something like drifting in car, guns and knives, that sort of thing, and stunt choreography, like fight choreography, learning it well and selling it well and adding performance to it is a really hard skill to learn, coming in new for it. And also, you're trying to find a way of telling the character story within a fight, so you don't want to look, my character is sort of, she's a novice, so she's got a lot of kind of will and confidence, but she doesn't have the experience, so I don't want the fight scene to look like it looks too easy for her at this point. I want it to feel that you can see that you want the audience to go, oh no, she's way in over her depth, and she's not going to survive this, so you're trying to put a performance arc into a stunt piece that also then has no dialogue, so that takes kind of a different skill set. But then to be doing it over and over and over again, pretend sometimes in a night shoot in the middle of Venice off a bridge that involves a backflip and several of them, and not only doing it repeatedly so you get a shot, then the camera's turned around and you're going to do it all again from that angle. And so the training for me is the understanding the stamina and the endurance to do these things safely and well, and also knowing how to sell the story within the action sequence. I think you can tell by how much I'm enjoying talking, how much I've missed not having dialogue. It's a very physical role, and the dialogue is very specific and economical, shall I say, and sparse compared to, like the play that I did beforehand, which was Ibsen play, which is entirely about language. So, this Mission it's an epic, romantic, in this kind of nostalgic sense, action adventure that I think the ambition for it is, we hope, I have no doubt that we will meet your expectations and surpass them.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be
got another year to wait. But I'm waiting too, so, yeah.
So you compared it to Top Gun, is it going to be good like that? Because the Maverick sequel was fantastic.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it's extraordinary. And the ambition, the mission is part one and part two, so you can imagine the scale of it, so we can't actually put this in one film, we actually have to do two parts. And it's just the level of detail to the authenticity of the stunts. There's no CGI, everything that you see is real. So these stakes are really high. You know, Tom Cruise puts his life on the line for these. He's done them in Mission, he's done the most dangerous stunt in movie history.
Like that plane thing he did that one time, hanging off the plane. That was him, that was on CGI or screen.
No, that's all real, yeah. First day one of shooting, he was jumping off a cliff off a motorbike in Norway. And he did that 8 times without harnesses, without the stunts, with no special effects. So, you know, he's committed to you guys feeling the adrenaline rush of what he's experiencing as he's doing it. Everything he does is entirely for the experience of the audience.
Another audience question from Candace. She wants to know, what are some of the unique challenges of working on a historically based character?
On a what-based
A
character?
historically based character or show.
Oh, well, the challenge is if that person is still alive, the responsibility to getting them right in some way, when in fact also it's the nature of doing a film about a character is inherently reductive, because you can't portray a human being's full experience of life in 2 hours. So the story is about picking out the parts that are crafted in a way that it's elements of that person's life with the director's agenda of what qualities do we want to bring to the foreground for the sake of the story. Historically, the benefits are there is so much material, and I love to research, so it means I can read tons up on that person's life or life at that time, and also see the social politics of the time, that person's experience, given their economic background at the time, as a woman at that time, and it helps to, again, for me, I'm looking for anything that gets me out of my own head, and that gets me to walk towards the character that is going to be the most exciting and the most alive and feels the most three-dimensional for the audience to experience. So playing historical character, if you want that, there is a wealth of knowledge and information out there for you to draw upon. And I even remember doing The Long Song, was a fictional book written by Andrea Levy, and having her book as a sort of gave me for the character lots more nuance. So the bits of the script that weren't, or the bits of the book that weren't in the script, but there were so many lovely touches in the book that I was able to add during the scenes, like having this thing of I played a character that she was heinous and horrid, absolutely awful, and I thought, well, I can't as an actor comment on her. If I'm judging her, then I'm doing a disservice to the whole story. And how can I make the audience not like her, but still want to watch her and be on the right side of our heroine? And I felt like, okay, this is not about me then creating a character that I hate and that we all hate because of her value system being so demoralizing and dehumanizing to the people around her. I was thinking psychologically, this could be a study of someone who has so much self-hatred that she can only project it onto the people around her, and then that gives her pathos, and then that gives her a real complex inner life that I was able to manifest through her always being too hot, like not ever wanting to be in her own skin, and developing sort of kind of tics, always kind of like batting flies away, because she just was so deeply uncomfortable in who she was. And so the book was able to help me flesh out those things that I can then put into the script, which for me just is more fun and enriches the whole experience.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming here today and talking with us. And this was just a great conversation. It was so wonderful to meet you. And if I'm not mistaken, if you cross the Blazing E and go into the other building, you'll be there for the afternoon.
Yeah, I'd love to come meet you guys. Come and say hi.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hayley Atwell.